Lake George is an ancient portal through which countless travelers set out in boats toward north-flowing waters leading through the Adirondacks to Canada, or begin the 12-mile carry to the Hudson River flowing to the south. 400 years ago, explorations by Europeans established new territories while two Native American cultures were vying for that same territory.
Any waterway was a major highway for us. You could go all the way up and you could go to the ocean at the tip up to Nova Scotia. Or you could go north again and west and you could go into the Great Lakes. Or you could go all the way south into Long Island Sound. It was just a short jump from Champlain to Lake George, and then it's another portage of about 12 miles to the Hudson River.
In 4 separate voyages between 1607 and 1611, Henry Hudson sailed farther north than any previous explorer in search of a shortcut between Europe and the Far East. In 1609, while sailing northeast from Holland in the Dutch ship Half Moon, the threat of mutiny justified Hudson's decision to break his contract, change course, and venture across the Atlantic to the New World. Upon references of a great sea not far inland, Hudson pursued in a 3-week exploration the river that was thereafter referred to as Hudson's River. Encountering natives he found both friendly and hostile, Hudson ventured as far as his ship could travel to present-day Albany.
The land is pleasant, high and bold, the finest for cultivation that I ever in my life set foot upon. As fine a river as can be found. The perfumes of grasses, wildflowers, and trees are smell so sweet that we stood still.
Although Hudson's journey was deemed a failure at the time, it was not long before the Dutch established colonies northward along this river valley. At the same time, Samuel deChamplain, an accomplished French explorer, like Hudson was initially looking for the passageway to the Far East, was already establishing settlements and trading in Canada. He soon became known as Father of New France for his native alliances that firmly placed France's influence along the St. Lawrence River. In July 1609, Champlain joined a group of 60 Algonquin Indians in an expedition against the warring Iroquois. From Quebec, the group headed south in birch bark canoes to the large lake Champlain would then name for himself.
Here are a number of beautiful but low islands with very fine woods and prairies. These parts, though agreeable, are not inhabited by any Indians because of the wars. They retire from the rivers as far as possible, deep into the country, in order not to be discovered.
Before reaching the portage near Ticonderoga, they encountered a flotilla of 200 Iroquois warriors. Agreeing to battle at sunrise, the night was spent dancing, singing, and trading a litany of insults between the encampments. The next morning, Champlain fired his arquebus, a firearm the likes of which the Iroquois had never before witnessed on the advancing war party. The resulting death of 3 Indian chiefs caused the Iroquois to retreat in shock and fear. Champlain became a hero to the Algonquins, setting the stage for the French, English, and Indian partnerships for many years to come. Part of French colonization was establishing the influence of Jesuit priests on Indian nations, most notable among them for his sainthood, and believed to be one of the first Europeans to see Lake George, was Father Isaac Jogue, who came to the Canadian wilderness for the difficult occupation of missionary among Samuel deChamplain's Indian allies. During his sojourn, Jogue was captured, tortured, beaten, and enslaved by enemy Iroquois. Jogue agreed to an opportunity to parley a peace between the Mohawks and their tribal enemies, though he predicted his own death by this effort. Back on the water route to Mohawk territory in 1646, his journey took him down the magnificent lake he named Lac du Saint-Sacrement. Jogue's intentions were to bring peace to a place worthy of possessing the greatest attributes of paradise on earth.
Et voici ce lac magnifique, baptisa le lac du Saint-Sacrement.
In 1807, Robert Fulton introduced the first commercial steamboat service, which ran from New York City to Albany. In 1817, the Lake George Steamboat Company was established. Lake George steamboats served hotels and businesses along the lake and took passengers to transportation connections to boats on Lake Champlain and stagecoach service on the improved Plank Road to the Hudson River. And between 1871 and 1939, the Steamboat Company became part of the Delaware and Hudson Railroad system. The Lake George Steamboat Company remains the oldest operating steamboat company in the world and a steward of lake history, providing interpretive narratives on board seasonal cruises.
Lake George has been host to many visitors who have shaped nearly 400 years of recorded history. Their endeavors tell the story of this important corridor for movement and challenges, of which Lake George is the center point. Territorial disputes between the native peoples were replaced by territorial conflicts by French and English powers. These nation-building events created the colonial wars of the 18th century, of which the Lake George landscape played a pivotal role. Lake George is regarded a national treasure for its unmatched beauty and significant history. Passers through have made great sacrifices for the privilege to enjoy and care for this precious waterway. Many historic sites and monuments at Lake George tell the extraordinary story of the time of bark canoes, colonial warships, steamboats, stagecoach lines, and railroads. Understanding the Lake George region's past journey can lead us to our own discoveries and adventures.